broadcasting.
Okay.
Okay.
We are broadcasting. We are live. Hi, everyone who's joining in.
Yep. Okay, we are filling up. Just give us 30 seconds. Yeah, thank you very much, all of you. Just before I get into it, whoever wants to put anything on the chat box, all the questions, please put them on the chat box. And then when you use the chat box, use all panelists and attendees, please. I think by default, unfortunately, we have no control over it. Everything goes to all panelists, plus please change it to all panelists and attendees so that everybody can see your question. We don't have to repeat them. And also, please do let us know where you are from, so there's a good idea about how diverse, at the same time inclusive, this audience is. Just as a reminder, I know that we have had several mails following up saying, hey, today's session, I haven't seen the podcast, I haven't seen the video. Unfortunately, you won't be seeing them for a week sometimes because it takes us time. We don't have a huge commercial organization. So please bear with us. And roughly it takes about a week before we are able to upload the podcast and the videos. And as far as the CCUs are concerned, Magda has already sent in all the mails, every one of them. Please relook at them when you're registered. You will have to go to the forum and you will have to, at the end of the whole colloquium, which would be around the 1st of November, you will have to enter some details, we'll publish them, and you will be able to get them. So it will not be, I mean, if you attend the program today and tomorrow you want to CCU, that will not be possible. So just want to make it sure, because I know that everybody is impatient, but it's going to be difficult to manage it, except in the format that we have currently been able to set up. So today's session would like to introduce you Alan, along with him, Trace and Jo. Alan was my teacher and my mentor in my coaching journey way back some 8-9 years ago when I became an accidental coach. And he runs a program on transformational presence, extraordinarily powerful. And we've been extremely lucky and truly grateful to you for being here. Alan will give a little more background into what he does, what the program is. And later on, he would also be doing a mastery program with us, which would be from early 2020. A little bit of a background of that also, Alan can provide that. It'll be a 30-hour CCU program with ICF credentials. For many of you, this is going to be additional in-depth journey into the transformational part of coaching. Trace has been with our colloquium several times, and so we are fortunate to have him here today. Jo is new. I myself, I'm seeing her for the first time today, and it's a pleasure meeting her. So what I would leave now is for Alan to introduce himself and others as well, and they will be in dialogue or trialogue, whatever the right word is. I'll be in the background watching the chat, and if there are any questions, to feed them back in case they miss your question. So please address to all panelists and attendees. I still see many of you are doing it just to our panelists. Please shift that addressing to all panelists and attendees. Otherwise, we have a problem with others not being able to see your questions. Thank you. Over to you, Alan, and Trace, and Jo.
Thank you so much, Ram, and thank you for this invitation to be here. Thank you to Magda for all the help on the back end. And it's really wonderful to be here in this space with all of you from around the world today. I think Ram has told you a little something about me. I'm the director of the Center for Transformational Presence and the creator of this Transformational Presence work. And our work now is spread to graduates from more than 800 countries, more than 35 countries. It's more than 1,000 graduates in our work, and from more than 35 countries. And for me, I just feel like I have the best job in the world. When people say, what do you do? I just, I get to meet extraordinary people around the world and support them in bringing big visions to life. And, you know, it just doesn't get any better than that. I'm really, really happy to be here today with Jo Boniszewski and Trace Hobson, just to say that there were two others who were supposed to be with us today. Joanna Zawada-Kubik from Poland and Sander van Ekelen from the Netherlands. They are actually leading a 5-day Transformational Presence course right now. We had hoped maybe they could bring their group in and participate with us a little bit, but that just didn't work. So that's the reason they're not here with us today. But the two of them and Jo and Trace are on my front of the room leader team. I've worked very closely with them over the last 2 years and very personally mentoring them in this work. And so I'm really thrilled to have Jo and Trace here with us today. Jo, could you just say something about who you are, what the focus of your primary focus of your work is right now in the world?
Yes, thank you, Alan. I've been working with the Transformational Presence approach now for about 6 or 7 years, and I work with senior leaders in an individual coaching capacity and senior leadership teams, facilitation and coaching capacity, mainly in the for-profit sector, so corporate world and medium, small businesses. I'm focusing very much on developing the leadership capacities that are needed in today's rapidly changing, highly disruptive world.
Wow, thank you. And I know you also do quite a bit of one-on-one work as well with these leaders, not just the teams and organizations. So,
absolutely, yes, probably more than half my work is one-on-one. Yes.
Thank you. And Trace, please tell us about the focus of your work. I know that this community is a little familiar with you already, but
yeah. Well, good morning, everyone, from where I am in British Columbia, Canada, on the West Coast, in early morning here. So I'm the founder and director of iConnect Expansion, and the focus of my work is to work in organizations to hold a space for transformation, and specifically to do that around systemic transformation for individuals, teams, and organizations overall. And so the work that I do in the world is to help leaders and managers and coaches to be able to create that kind of a space so that we can move from what Jo described as the really big and sometimes chaotic and stressful world of organizations to something that's much more connected, collaborative, and compassionate.
Thank you, Trace. And you know, when you say that chaotic world of organizations, I think we could even just expand that to the chaotic world right now, and this world that is in such incredible disruption, and to understand that we're living in this world where that disruption is perpetual and it will continue to speed up. And so a part of our invitation right now, I don't want to say challenge, I want to say part of our invitation is learning how to partner with that disruption, to work with it as we go forward and to ride this wave together. And so that's a big part of what we're here to explore today as we look at this topic of coaching across boundaries, and then bring that even more clearly into a place of building bridges, of co-creation, of collaboration. What does that mean? And if we talk about this whole idea of transformational presence, we'll give that a definition a little bit later, but this will be a very experiential call. We're going to do some work together, some exercises, give you some tools, so play with some things here, as well as be in dialogue around a lot of these things. Our focus on transformational presence as a foundational set of tools and skills and capacities that is really the foundation of the emerging conscious leadership movement. This conscious leadership movement is taking off all over the world these days, and that's incredibly exciting to me. And there are some people who have said, oh, transformational presence is a movement, and I say, no, for me, it's not. It's that we are a part of this much larger movement of conscious leadership. And what is it that we bring to the table in that movement? What we bring are these foundational skills and tools and capacities that can bring all the other approaches and work within the conscious leadership movement to life in a much more profound way. So we're looking at this coaching across boundaries in several different perspectives today. We're talking about boundaries between intellect and heart, boundaries between rational intelligence and intuitive intelligence. We're exploring boundaries of awareness and what does that mean to stretch those or to cross those boundaries. We're exploring boundaries between the known and the unknown, the seen and the unseen. We're and then of course we're exploring boundaries in the way that we more traditionally think of them, boundaries between cultures, but also boundaries between perspectives and practices and beliefs and organizational and societal systems. How do we start to explore all of that? That's a lot for an hour and a half's time. And yet, let's just see where we can go with this in a very experiential and intuitive way. When we talk about crossing boundaries, that requires expanding our capacities for awareness, expanding our capacities for creating intentional cultures, and our capacities for intentional and effective action. And so it's inviting, I know that this is an audience perhaps primarily of coaches, expanding our awareness beyond the core competencies of whether that's the ICF or other coaching coaching organizations, coaching approaches. Those core competencies are really important, and yet they're not the end. They are actually just building blocks. The core competencies and the skills and the tools that we work with in Transformational Presence are just building blocks to expand our capacities. Understanding that in order to do transformational work in the world, we must cross that boundary from just being really good at what we do through the core competencies or the competencies of our work, expanding that into the capacities for who we are, the capacities for how we show up in the world, the capacities of what we bring in the moment. So when we talk about expanding capacities, we're talking about capacities for awareness and perception, for stretching beyond the sort of familiar analytical knowledge-based approaches that we have all been taught, and stretching beyond that into, well, just beyond those ways of working in ways that we'll explore today. The key here is that our job in doing transformational work is not to tell people what to think. Our job is to expand how they think, how they perceive, how they engage, expand their awareness on every level. It's expanding our capacities for being fully present with the reality of what's happening right now. A big key about this is it's not about do we like what's happening or not like it? Is it okay for us? Is it not okay? It's just what's here. Is it what we want? Is it not what we want? It doesn't matter. It's what's here. So expanding our capacity to be present with what is and begin to work with it instead of push against it. Expanding our capacities for navigating complexity. We are living in this incredibly complex world, often described as a VUCA world, so volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. It's very difficult to know where we are at any given moment, and there is so much going on that we're not even aware of yet. So finding the tools that help us dive deep into that complexity and get to the essence of what's going on. Our capacities for curiosity and imagination. One of the biggest things that we say all the time in the Transformational Presence work is that we must keep our clients in discovery, which means we have to stay in discovery. As soon as we move into figure it out mode, into analyzing it, then we've shut it down. So staying in discovery, being curious all the time. What is it that's trying to get our attention next? Our capacities for creating safe environments or creating intentional cultures. How are we creating a space? And then sensing our capacities to sense how everything is connected to everything else. So it's all these capacities that we're exploring here for crossing boundaries and see what that means. So stretching those boundaries of awareness, the key here is that we don't do that by talking about it. We do that by creating processes, by stepping into experience with the people that we serve and letting the structure or the container that we're creating through the particular exercise or process, letting that create a container for discovery and see where that takes us. So there are three fundamental questions in Transformational Presence. All of our work is based on just three questions. Let's see where these take us as we start to cross boundaries, stretch our boundaries of awareness. So question number one, I invite you to be with us here in a little exercise, and then please bring response in the chat, and then we'll see where you are after the exercise and can respond in that way. Question number one, what is an opportunity that's available to you or to your organization right now? What is an opportunity that's available to you or to your organization right now? Just sit with that for a moment in your own silence. Listen, sense, feel. You don't need to type anything right at the moment. Just be in the experience. And now that you have that opportunity, you're aware of that. So we go to question number two. Who is that asking you to be? Who is that opportunity asking you to be? Now that might seem like a little bit of an odd question. It's not a question that we're used to asking. What that question means is, how's it asking you to show up? What part of you is it asking you to bring forward right now into this opportunity? Perhaps it's a role that it's asking you to play. Maybe it's asking you to be courageous or to be creative or playful or honest or whatever that is. It's asking you to show up in a particular way. There's nothing to figure out here. Listen, sense, feel. Who is this opportunity asking you to be? How's it asking you to show up? And then question number three, listen, sense, feel to the opportunity. What is the opportunity asking you to do? Now, we're not talking about a huge, fully developed plan. We're not even talking about the next 5 steps. We're talking about as the next step. What is the next step that this opportunity is asking you to take? So let's open this up on the chat for a moment, and I'm going to bring Jo and Trace into this in just a moment. But let's just hear from you. What happens when you ask these 3 questions in this order? So things, can you slow down? There's so much to capture. Okay, I'll slow. There's so much I want to bring to you. Yeah, improve board performance, show up on courage, ask questions. What else do you notice? Asking these 3 questions in this order. It opens potential, someone says. Creates a coaching culture, brings clarity. Yeah, be the person I want to be. Ecocentricity, interesting word. Encourages opportunities. All these things. So if we just bring this down to the 3 fundamental questions of transformational presence, and then I want to bring Trace and Jo in here to talk about this. All of our work is built on 3 questions. We just ask, as number 1, we just asked, what's an opportunity that's available to us right now? That's a variation on the bigger question of what wants to happen. And with that question, what wants to happen, it's not what do I want, or what do you want, or what do we want, but in service of something bigger than us. There's something that wants to happen here, or there's something that's trying to get our attention. There's a message that's trying to come through. There's a shift that's trying to happen if we would just let that happen, or a breakthrough. We're just right on the edge of a breakthrough if we would just take a breath and let that come on in. So what wants to happen is question number 1. And then listening to that what wants to happen for question number 2, who's it asking us to be? How's it asking us to show up? And then number 3, what's it asking us to do? We're so accustomed to saying, here's what's going on, especially here's the problem. And notice we started with opportunity instead of the problem. So here's the problem. How are we going to fix it, or what are we going to do? So we cut right to question number 3. We skip right to question number 3, and actually not even question number 3, because we move right into figuring out what our approach is going to be, as opposed to listening to it, letting it talk to us. There's a wealth of information here if we will just take a moment and step back. Jo, let's come to you first. How do you work with these 3 questions, and what difference do they make with your people?
Thank you, Alan. I work with these questions all the time in individual coaching, and also with groups of people. And in the last year or so, with groups of people who have absolutely no experience or knowledge of transformational presence. And I start immediately with these questions. It's the very first exercise we do before any kind of introduction. You know, you gave a bit of an introduction today, but I just step on in there and start asking the questions. And things shift very quickly in terms of mindset and heart set. And a lot of the comments that I saw coming up in the chat were also very reflective of what happens. And one thing I'd like to share is what I hear repeatedly is how people experience this as a kind of funnel where they start out wide. You know, what's the opportunity? What's the potential? And although we're slowing down and there's serenity and stillness, we're leading people very quickly into a kind of focused next step and action. And I think I saw in the chat just now something around stillness and at the same time movement. People talk about this, you know, slowing down to accelerate, and it happens within minutes. So it's a very, very simple but powerful way to open things up in both individuals and groups.
Thank you, Jo. And you mentioned that slowing down. And as we come to you, Trace, we talk in our community, slowing down to the speed of presence. And you're actually the one who coined that phrase. And so maybe that's a starting place here for you, that slowing down to the speed of presence. And what does that mean for you in the systemic work?
Yeah, for me, for a long time, that's been the challenge. As you know, a former executive and manager, project manager, it didn't feel like I had permission to ever do that. And so one of the things that this work and working with energy and transformational presence has brought to me is the ability to do that, to slow down to the speed of presence, so that, like Jo said, everything else can begin to speed up. And for me, the 3 questions have been a fundamental tool to recognize the multidimensional and systemic nature of organizations. And what happens for me with those 3 questions is they become an organizational development tool. And that organizational development doesn't start outside of me, it actually starts inside of me. And as I work with that tool and work with the energy that's going on inside of me and the energy that I can recognize going on outside of me, if I'm at the speed of presence, that becomes the elixir for my work with people, individually, teams, and organizations. And then it goes much, much further beyond me and what I could do by myself to a systemic ripple effect as well.
I love how you're already bringing in, Trace, this whole thing about the inside. It starts from the inside. And we'll talk about this a little bit more in a few minutes when we define that term transformation. But just to tie it to what you're talking about right now is understanding that transformation, I call it's an inside job. It's not an outside job. It's an inside job. It starts at the core and then works its way out. When you drop the pebble in the water and you see those rings expand out from there, well, that's what we're doing. And that's what you're beautifully describing right now, Trace, in systemic work of cutting to the core, getting to the center as much as you're able to, and then working from there out. And then the transformation happens within the system much more quickly. This whole thing with the 3 questions, I fully acknowledge that I don't do a lot of corporate work, and the people in our community do quite a bit of corporate work, and Jo and Trace are both doing a lot of that work. But what I have done in the corporate world is I've done a lot of work with IKEA, with the country level CEOs of pretty much every country in the world now I've worked with over the last 3 years, and their deputies. So the top leadership teams within each country with IKEA. And just as Jo says, we start right out with these questions. It's the first thing that I meet these groups. I'm usually with them for 2 days. I meet them for the first time. And before we do anything, we just go right to these 3 questions with an exercise of moving around the room and playing with that. And within 20 minutes, things have cracked open, perspectives have shifted, and people are realizing, oh my gosh, I just have an insight or an awareness that came so quickly. I've been trying to find this for whatever amount of time. And this huge awareness that they have, coming back to Trace's slow down to the speed of presence, that awareness that because they are so driven all the time for result, as is happening in most companies, that awareness that, wow, if I just take 5 minutes and step back, take a breath and listen, everything shifts. There's so much more available to us here. So let's define some terms here so that we're kind of on the same page with that, and then we'll go into another exercise. The first word is, if we talk about transformational presence, then let's talk about that word presence first. By that word, I simply mean, how are you showing up? What do people experience when they're with you? What do they feel? If you reflect back over your life to the people who have had the most impact on you, chances are, more than what they did, you remember who they were. You remember how it felt to be with them, what you experienced when you're with them. There's the key of presence. The people will remember who we are. That makes the first impression on them. And so presence, how you're showing up in the moment. We all know the people that when they walk in the room, the whole room lights up. We also know the people when they walk in the room, everything gets heavy and dark. I was speaking in Montreal. I was a keynote speaker for the Global Conscious Leadership Summit back in April. And so Bob Anderson from the Leadership Circle and I were the 2 keynote speakers. And he was in the morning, I was in the afternoon. There was one thing that he said that I just can't ever stop thinking about. He described, so who is the person who brings the weather? Well, that is completely about presence, you know? What happens when you come into the room? What happens when you are one-on-one with somebody? What is the space that you're creating for them? So presence. Then that word transformation. That's a word that's being used all over the place now. And when that happens, it's very easy for us to lose the sense of what does that word really mean? So if we come back to the root of that word, it comes from the Latin transforma, which literally means change across form. It's the inside out. It's starting from the core and working our way out. In quantum physics terms, you might say it is a shift of vibrational frequency and pattern. Whether you're working with an individual or a family or an organization or a country, any system whatsoever, the transformation happens in that same fundamental way, cutting through to the core or to the essence or as close as we can get in the moment, and then working from there out. We mostly in our world take little bites around the edge of something. That's called change. So we move the furniture around. We make some superficial changes about things, but no transformation has occurred. In order for change to be sustainable, something has to have shifted at the core in our beliefs and our understanding and our perception and our awareness. Something has to have shifted in how we are seeing and understanding what's going on. So transformational presence, what is that? Transformational presence it's not about making something happen. It's instead about creating the best possible conditions, the best possible culture, the best possible environment for transformation to unfold, for the potential, the greatest potential to emerge. It's creating the space for things to happen, things to move. I think of it like tending a garden. If you are a gardener, you know that when you plant a seed, there's nothing you can do to make that seed grow. But there are lots of things you can do to encourage that seed to grow. So you can plant it in rich soil, you make sure it gets the right amount of water and light, and you fertilize it and you pull the weeds. In other words, you tend the garden. And that's what transformational presence is. It's about tending the garden. It's about creating an optimal culture and then tending that culture, taking care of that culture, nurturing that culture for extraordinary things to happen. The two other terms that we're playing with already here today, whole mind thinking and whole being awareness, just the concepts we're playing with. Whole mind thinking you might think of as right and left brain, but it's actually much more than that. It's really that partnership between intellect intelligence and heart intelligence. And the Institute of Heart Math, some of you may know that work. It's heartmath.org is their website. They are doing incredible research on the intelligence of the heart and the coherence or alignment between the brain and the heart. And one of the things they've discovered in their research is that the electromagnetic field of the heart energy center, which is the center of the intuitive mind, the electromagnetic field of the heart energy center is 5,000 times bigger than the electromagnetic field of the brain, of the intellect. Now, what that says to me is that the heart center, the intuitive mind, has access to a field of information that is 5,000 times bigger than the field of information we can access through the intellect alone. Now, this is not about one being better than the other. It's about the partnership of them working together, of recognizing that the heart center, the intuitive mind, which is the larger mind, the intellectual mind is just one small part of that much larger intuitive mind. And the heart intelligence has the capacity to stretch way out into the energy field of a situation and gather information and bring it back in. But it's not very good at organizing that information. That's what the intellect is really amazing at. And so the heart brings this information in. The intellect begins to organize that information, create that filing system that, you know, when you haven't thought about something for 5 years, but you need that piece of information and instantly it's there. That's what the intellect is really good at. They need each other. The intellect can't reach very far out, but the heart can. In the coaching world, there's this saying that the client has all the answers. I used to believe that that was true, and I don't anymore. And here's the reason. Here's the key. The principle of polarity says that nothing can exist unless its opposite is also present. So the question can't exist unless the answer is not somewhere around us. The conflict cannot exist unless the resolution is not also present. The challenge cannot exist unless the pathway forward is not somewhere here around us. But the key is, it's not necessarily in here. It's in the energy field of what's going on. And so what we have in here is this incredible technology, human energy technology, to access that information, to cross the boundaries and find our way into that next place. Whole body awareness, our whole being awareness, and is just realizing that it's the whole system. Our bodies are incredible sensing mechanisms and have an enormous amount of information for us if we'll pay attention. So let's step into crossing the boundaries between intellect and heart here, between the intellectual intelligence and intuitive intelligence, and see how they can dance together. Bring to your awareness something that is a challenge for you right now, something you're kind of having a hard time with. And then for just a moment, no matter what your relationship to that challenge is, for just a moment, push against it. Make something happen. It's the problem. We have to solve it. Fix it now. Just do something. Whatever manipulation it takes, just do it. Take care of it right now. And notice what happens inside of you, in your body, with your breath. What happens in your sense of well-being. What happens in your relationship to the challenge when you push against it. Just make something happen. Just fix it now. Come on, let's go. stay with that just a moment longer to notice what's happening inside of you when you're in the push against mode. And then take a deep breath and kind of shake that out. Chances are your challenge is still there. It's okay. So take another breath. And imagine that you are dropping down underneath it or lifting high up above it, whichever feels easier for you, but getting to a quieter place and maybe to a slower place. And there's something here that's trying to get your attention. There's a message that's trying to come through. There's something that wants to happen. Listen, sense, feel. Let it show you. Let it tell you what wants to happen. And what if you let yourself partner with that? Partner with what wants to happen. What happens inside of you with your breath, with your relationship to the challenge, when you move from push against to partner with. And so what happens in the, just put something in the chat here. I see some things are coming in already, and Trace and Jo, you may be picking up stuff already here that's coming in. So let's come to you, Trace and Jo, and we'll also just kind of see what's going on here in the chat and what happens for you with push against and partner with, and as a kind of fundamental concept in your work.
Shall I start, Trace? Yeah, okay, great. So I can talk, Alan, actually about what happens with me when I do this work, what I notice within myself, and also that's very much mirrored in the comments and the feedback I get from people I work with, how often very quickly when people move into that push against place, that the physical sensations that they feel, the tightening in the chest, the quickening of the breath, I think was also mentioned in the chat, the breath rising, and a kind of locking down, or a sort of a narrowing down of awareness and perspective that kind of limits, and it's fighting against often. And then how quickly when they shift into this invitation, move into the invitation of partnering with, that things open out literally in the body, that people notice literally this opening out in the body, and therefore also in the mind, in the awareness, and new perspectives and opportunities show up. And it's a very active, this partner with is a very active way of being and doing.
Yeah, I love how you say that word active, because there's an important distinction here. I actually used to call this tool push against or flow with, and then the flow with was getting a little confusing because people were taking that as go with the flow. And so let's talk about the active versus passive here, of that what this framework, very simple concept, is inviting us to, is to be very proactive in our awareness and then say yes to what we're being asked for. So it's not a passive, just go with the flow, go with whatever's happening anyway and see where it takes us. No, it is listening, sensing, feeling, paying attention. There's something trying to get my attention. And what if I start to work with that, to partner with that in a very proactive and engaged way? Trace, talk to us about how this shows up in systemic work.
Well, the way it shows up, I like where Jo started. I'm going to start there too, because it always starts with me. And what I notice about this particular exercise, it tunes me into how my body and my awareness connected to my body is a gauge of what's going on energetically. And if I listen to it, there's some really powerful things that can happen systemically, but it really does start with me. It's all about me at that point, because one of the things in the chat that I noticed was somebody said, I find it really hard to listen deeply. And that's where it is, right there, because I relate to that. There's moments in stressful situations or in situations of uncertainty where I don't know what to do as a coach, a manager, and a leader, where I feel tension there. And what I've recognized is that's an evolutionary tension for me. It's a developmental tension for me. And if I listen to the energy underneath that, then what can happen is, as I do my work inside, I'm equipped to do my work outside of me and to serve a higher agenda than mine. And that happens in the individual interactions as a coach, a manager, or leader. But then it also, what gives me a lot of joy is the fact that then connects to the larger systemic conversation that wants to happen in the team I might be dealing with, or in the department, or in the organization. There's a longing underneath those parts and pieces that wants alignment and expansion as well. And somehow, as I create what I'm talking about, I become a space holder for what wants to happen on a larger scale as well. So that's how it shows up for me, Alan.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. There's a big piece that you said here about it starts with me. It's inside of me. And then for us to recognize that actually, yes, with you, but then we're working in that space in between you and what's going on. So chances are, for nobody here on the call, your challenge probably has not disappeared through this exercise. However, what we're shifting is your relationship to the challenge. And so it's exactly what you're talking about, Trace, that it starts in here and then into the space in between us, where between me and whatever's going on. As my perception shifts about that, as I have another level of understanding about it, something opens up, then I start to find the next step. I'm listening to it. It's showing me, yes, take this step. Here's the next place. Here's what wants to happen. If I partner with that and start to move with it. So I just want to stress that it's not a quick fix. That's not the point. It's not a magic pill that if I just, push against, or flow with, or partner with instead of push against, everything's going to be fine. Maybe everything will be fine, but you're still going to have to do your work. You're still going to have to constantly be proactively engaged with what's going on there. Let's take this another step with just this whole idea of, do you talk to life or do you let life talk to you? Take a project that you're working on right now, or a goal, something that you want to accomplish. And then whatever that project is, or that goal, notice for yourself. Have you been talking to it, telling it what you want it to be and what you want to happen? Or have you stepped back and let it talk to you? What is the wisdom inside that project itself, inside the goal? There's guidance that it actually has for you. It knows how to unfold. And if you've been talking to it, it's okay, but just turn that around and notice what's different when you start listening to it, when you let it talk to you. And then let's switch topics. Go to a relationship that's really important to you. And notice with that relationship, and when I say relationship, I don't mean the other person. I mean the space in between you, the relationship space, the relationship itself. Have you been talking to that relationship, telling it what you want it to be? Or are you listening to it? Are you letting it talk to you? Letting it invite you into perhaps a next step? What does the relationship want? If you've been talking to it, it's okay. Just turn it around. So what we're talking about in this fundamental way is, do you talk to life? Do you talk to your work? Do you talk to the project? Do you talk to your company? Do you talk to the important relationships in your life, or do you listen to them? Now, ultimately, it needs to be a full circle, that it's a fully engaged process back and forth. Yet it starts with listening first, letting it talk to you. And as Trace was talking about, and some people in the chat saying it's hard, I have a hard time listening deeper. I understand. It's a practice. It's a practice. And so we start wherever we are, and with lots of the tools from Transformational Presence, it's giving us ways to listen and to cross those boundaries between intellect and heart intelligence, intellect and intuition, and bringing them together in partnership. It's a practice. So let's come back to Jo and Trace. And what are ways that you find in your work that you help those that you serve, besides push against and partner with, or talking to life, or letting life talk to you? What are other ways that you help build this bridge and this partnership between intellect and intuition with the people you serve?
Alan, I just want to jump in with an observation that I have, if I may.
Yes. Yes.
A metaphor that came up for me as you were talking about the whole transformational presence. Earlier, you talked about the polarities and the listening and so on. In the Hindu philosophy, there's this concept of Shiva, the ultimate energy, as an androgynous entity. One half of him is man, the other half of him is woman. Ironically or strangely, the man part of it is passive, and the woman part of it is active. Often it reminds me of the concept of a neutron, which is passive, inactive as it were. It's neither positive nor negative. An electron swirling around, which is doing a lot of work, entanglement, and everything else. And there's a scripture which fascinates me, is one where the active part, Shakti, she asks her counterpart, the male, passive, where do I find you? And he says, between your in-breath and out-breath, and your out-breath and your in-breath, and that is where you find me. It's an amazing exercise. When you try that, when you're holding your breath between inhalation and exhalation and exhalation and inhalation, there is no thought except, when am I going to breathe again? So between these two polarities. So when that happens, that is akin to the silence, the listening that you are asking for now, because that is absolutely the ultimate silence, which is the silence in a sense of creation. It's in a sense the sound of creation, or whatever it may be. I just thought I would leave that, because that as an exercise is in fact the fundamental starting point of all meditation, which is starting with a breath awareness of watching the breath between the inhalation and exhalation and exhalation and inhalation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And there's another step, it feels like, Ram, from what you're talking about, when we talk about this being a practice, in that it's not that we have this practice, as you talk about with the breath, as this isolated or separate thing from life. It's then taking that and letting the whole day be about that, learning how to be in that space in between, in that silence, learning how to listen and to make that a part of, in a sense, all day long. I'm the in-breath and the space and the out-breath, and what does that mean in our everyday application of life all the way through. So thank you for that. Thank you.
So I can build a little bit on what Ram is saying, what you're saying, Alan, as well, and I'll try to put words to this. So there's a sense of, I think that a lot of the time I have, and a lot of people that I know and work with have underestimated what the actual practical effect is of presence and being in the kind of presence that we're talking about. And I've learned about this in my work, but where I've really, what comes to mind as we're doing that exercise is as a dad, because my daughters are all grown now. I have 3 daughters. They're all adults. And you would think that the parenting would stop after they become adults, but it doesn't. It actually changes in a very fundamental way. And what I've noticed is, especially as I've watched my daughters mature into young women, and then now they're moving into adulthood in a real way, there's a sense of presence that that relationship space demands of me now and asks of me now, so that I can actually hold a space for maturity for them to happen, which is really difficult for me at times, because it means letting go of the old way that I've been a father and maybe I've protected or I've provided. It's not about that anymore. It's about actually creating a space where they can step into their own power and maturity and experience life and the mistakes and the challenges and all that goes along with that. And in my work, what I notice is there's also a connection there, because there's this constant invitation to let go of my agenda about the way that things should happen and when they should happen. And that's a challenge, because sometimes I have access to information and I know certain things energetically, but it's not the right time or it's not the right place. And so presence is what I'm asked for. And when I do that, the practical results that I notice are just incredible. First of all, immediately for the people I'm working with, but then for the whole system. And in this case, I'm describing the family system, but it's also the same way in organizations as well. So I just want to put that in there as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Jo.
I love the analogy you're making, Trace, between parenting and leadership and organization work. I also work with that a lot, with the analogies. And going back, Alan, to your original question, which was how do Trace and I and others working with this approach, the transformational presence approach, how do we invite people into this space of crossing boundary between intellect and intuition? Trace mentioned it in the chat as a response to a question that came up. What about gut intelligence? And Trace, you responded that in transformational presence, we also work with what we call the 3 intelligences: the head, the heart, and the belly, or the gut. And one of the ways that I invite, and we all invite people we work with to, again, cross this boundary between intellect and intuition, is to invite them into an internal dialogue between these 3 intelligences, and to invite them into an exploration of, for example, which of my intelligence is leading me right now? Which is my default leader in this particular project or opportunity or challenge I have? And which of the 3 intelligences, or which combination of the 3, would serve the project if it were to be the leader? So that's one very concrete way that we work with intellect and intuition and the partnering of. And just going back to what Ram was saying about the breath, or at least making the link to the breath, a wonderful, wonderful way to cross boundaries between the 3 intelligences is to use the breath, and invite people we work with to breathe vertically and align those 3 intelligences and cross the boundary using the breath.
So Jo, you want to just lead us through a little exploration of those 3 intelligences? I know we didn't talk about this, but I think that you're bringing a great, especially when you talk about it from the leadership perspective, which one is the leader, and so you want to take us through something to explore that a little bit?
Yeah, yes, sure. Thank you for the invitation, Alan. In transformational presence, we always work with what there is. So this invitation has been handed to me, so I work with it with pleasure. So just take a moment and call into your awareness a project you're working on, or a challenge, a situation that you may be struggling with a little at the moment. Call that into your awareness and just notice which thoughts are going through your mind. Tune into your head and your intellect. And notice what your head has to say right now. About what's going on. No judgment, just notice. It's all just information. And now drop your awareness right deep down into your belly. You may want to use your breath, breathing deep, deep down into your belly. And engage the intelligence and the knowing that there is down here. How does it feel? What's present in your gut feel about your project or situation. Maybe even there are words that come up, or pictures or symbols. And if there's nothing, be curious about that too. There's never nothing. And now gently leave your belly and bring your awareness up to your heart center. Tune in with your breath or your awareness to the heart center. And listen and be curious as to what your heart knows about your project or challenge. Again, it's all just information, no judgment, be curious. And then just leaving your heart center and taking it, as it were, in your awareness, a step back and just reviewing the information and the knowing that you received from those three centers. Breathing into that. Ask yourself which intelligence or combination of intelligences serves right now, serves your situation, serves the project. And let that answer come to you. Let your intelligences show you. Maybe it's not your default intelligence, maybe it is. And let that intelligence or combination of intelligences show you now what's being asked of you as a very next step. Thank you. Back to you, Alan.
Thank you, Jo. Thank you. So just type into the chat here, what happens when you listen to those three intelligences and let them talk to you? What gets your attention? It's suddenly very quiet in the chat. That was awesome, somebody says. Slowing down the chatter. So empowering. There's a real important key here to what Jo was just doing. The whole idea of letting them talk to us instead of us, especially sitting in the intellect and interpreting what we think the others are going to say. So the physical aspect of that, of literally dropping down in the breath, all the way deep into the belly, deep into the bottom of your body, and then coming to the heart center, and using the breath to trigger those so that they can speak. And this is one way, the way that Jo just led us through is just one way that we work with these three intelligences. There are several different ways that we work with them. And another way that we won't take time for now, but a key is getting them talking to each other, not us, again, not us talking to them or us trying to convince one of them of anything. Just let them talk to each other and they begin to work it out. So in coaching, we're sort of, as the coach, we're sort of facilitating that dialogue with the client between those three intelligences, just helping them explore and helping them learn how to let them talk to each other. And big insights arrive. Yeah. Thank you so much for that, Jo. Trace, is there something else you want to share too about just ways that you help create this bridge between intellect and intuition? And I just, one other thing I want to say there about that is that it's not about bringing them together like this, like the two become one. No, 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 no. It's recognizing that they each have such incredible strengths. And it's about how they start to dance together, how they become incredible partners, not the two become one. They dance as incredible partners here, as two parts of a whole. So Trace, what else can you want to share with us?
Well, what I notice about this great exercise, Jo, thank you for that, is there is a naturalness to this that when I slow down and I notice that this is already happening inside of me, and maybe I'm not noticing it, or maybe I'm sort of defaulting towards some of the intellect. But as I slow down, my heart and my belly and my intellect actually want to be aligned and work together in a way that serves. And so that's always a really vibrant thing for me to realize over and over again in a practice, because it just feels so much more abundant to tap into that and to work from that, rather than to sort of be up here all the time. So for me, the bridge for that is to notice how this is really our birthright as human beings, that we're designed to be multidimensional. We're designed to be listeners of that conversation that's going on underneath our work and our life, so that we can partner with what's there and align in the fullness of who we are and the work that we're here to do. And I know I'm there because there's always joy and gratitude. There's always light and lightness and ease with that, compared to the push against or the trying to make things happen. And so really the bridge for that is to create what we've created here this morning. Alan, you're leading us in creating a space of safety. And that is, for me, in the work that I do, is a foundational piece. Safety from inside of me, safety outside of me, and to create a container for people to step into and to take risks that they might not otherwise take, is a fundamental for bridging from the intellect to the rest of the information that's always there. So that's what I can offer there.
Yeah, there are these three kind of fundamental voices within us that, as you said just a moment ago, Trace, they're always expressing themselves inside of us. But if we're not aware that they're expressing themselves, then that shows up in a lot of distress down in your belly, or or that pain in the heart, or whatever that is, because we're not paying attention. And so this is such a powerful tool for letting these different voices inside of us have a voice, letting them express what they need to express, and to recognize that all three of them have really important information for us. And it's key for us to work. I've noticed in the chat that a few times the chakras have come up, something said about the chakras, and these three intelligences, and especially working with them in this very intuitive way, is a great way to kind of bring the chakras into your work without talking about the chakras. And perhaps that's not such an easy thing to talk about within any particular setting, but everybody understands head, belly, and heart. And so this is a tool that we find we can take right to people in organizations immediately, and they get it, and they can start to work with it. They may not at first so easily access all three of them because that's been shut off. And so we have some work to do to help them come back to find that. But I love when I'm working with a team, especially after we've worked with these three intelligences for a bit, and then hearing them ask each other, well, what does your belly say about that? What is that? You know, now that's starting to become a part of their language, of how they're working together. And certainly with my one-on-one clients around that as well. I find this tool for myself personally very helpful when you've probably had that experience where you know exactly what you need to do. You know exactly what you need to do. And yet you can't seem to take that step. Something just won't let you go there. And so for me, going to the three intelligences usually shows me right away, here's where the red flag is. And that red flag is trying to bring me a really important piece of information. I need to listen to that and see what is it that needs to be taken care of in that moment. Wow. So thank you, Jo, again, for giving us that taste. So let's talk here, as I'm just aware of our time. We have maybe another 10 or 15 minutes here. Let's talk about three fundamental principles that the transformational presence work is based on, and how those principles are helping us cross boundaries of awareness and understanding and culture and all those different kinds of boundaries we're talking about today. These three principles come to us from the ancient wisdom teachings, and now quantum physics is showing us the science behind these three fundamental principles. The first principle is that everything is energy in motion, and everything is therefore a part of a larger process unfolding. Nothing exists in isolation. Nothing exists only in the state that it is at this moment. It comes from something else. This was happening over here, which brought us to what's happening in this moment. And the choices and decisions we make in this moment and the actions we take are going to take us to the next moment. So everything is a part of something much, much bigger. And being aware of that big picture all the time is critical. It's so easy for us to get caught in the details or caught in that space of, oh my God, what's happening right now? We will never get out of here. No, what's happening right now is just what's happening right now. And we got here from somewhere else, and this is going to take us to the next place. Everything is energy in motion, a part of a larger process unfolding. Form follows energy. That's the last part of this first principle. You all know perhaps one of the simplest ways of looking at this is to look at cultures within organizational systems, cultures within a family, cultures within any kind of system, and how the things that happen, the forms that emerge from that system are so impacted by that fundamental culture within the system. And so when we're working with energy instead of working with form, when you're trying to fix a problem, that's hard work. That's the push against. That's just, we got to take the pieces and somehow move them around and make something else happen. On the other hand, if we drop underneath to what is the energy here? What's going on? What's it asking us for? In the Japanese culture, they have a concept called ma, which literally means the energetic space within a situation. It can be within a physical space, but it's often within a situation or a project. In fact, they might say, if you're talking about a relationship, what's the ma in that relationship? What's the energy? What's in that space in between? And if they're talking about a project or a team, what's the ma? What's the energy in that space? So we're going straight to the energy and listening and sensing and feeling, what is it that's wanting to shift? All right, let's follow that. Let's partner with that and see where that takes us. Then the second principle says that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transformed. Some of you have perhaps done musical or theater improvisation. And if you have, you know that the first rule in improvisation is that you have to accept whatever your improvisation partner gives you and work with it. If you don't, the whole performance is likely to fall apart. It's pretty much the same in life. If we're willing to accept whatever's in front of us and work with it, it doesn't mean we like it necessarily, doesn't mean we have to think it's okay. It's just what's here. And so as soon as we are willing to work with what's here, now we're able to move on to the next place. So energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transformed. A really important part of that as well is our emotions, our feelings. That's also energy. And so we can't get rid of them, but we can transform them. And so that's a huge piece of what we're doing in our coaching work with no matter who we're working with, helping transform, in other words, shifting our relationship to what's going on, which takes us to the third principle that says the world is built on a matrix of relationships. Understanding that everything is connected to everything else in one way or another. This is, in fact, the fundamental worldview that shapes every choice and decision we make. At the most fundamental level, do we believe that everything is connected? In that case, we will make a certain kind of decisions. Or do we believe that everything is separate, everything is disconnected? Then we make decisions in a different kind of way. So recognizing that everything is connected to everything else, everything is a part of a larger matrix. And therefore, the most powerful work that we do is in the space in between. We aren't coaching the person. We're not coaching the project. We're not coaching the team. We're coaching the space in between the people in the team. We're coaching the space in between the people and the project, or between the people and the belief, or between the people and an idea. We're coaching the space in between. And as we work there, that's where the powerful work is for us in transformation work. We're playing with the energy. We're exploring, we're listening, we're sensing and feeling. What is it that wants to happen here? Who's it asking us to be? What's it asking us to do? So let's come back to Jo and Trace and what these three fundamental principles. I know how much you've worked also with all the Hermetic principles, the ancient wisdom teachings. And from these three fundamental ones, how do they impact your work? How do they show up in what you do? And maybe just to say, not necessarily in the literal thing you do with the clients, but your understanding of what's going on and therefore how you work with them. What comes up for you here?
Alan, I'd like to respond on that. One of the things that came up when you were talking about the second principle, that energy cannot be created or destroyed, it can only be transformed, and about working, for example, with emotions, which are energy, or thoughts, which are energy, was the incredible non-judgmental aspect of this work. Because if you're going to be working with emotions, difficult emotions or thoughts, troubling thoughts, is how much and how I experience this work in such a wonderful way, in that aspect of holding the space and being non-judgmental concerning those difficult emotions, concerning those limiting thoughts or limiting beliefs, and inviting them out and inviting a dialogue so that they also, as it were, are safe to transform and move. So that's the first thing, how important it is in creating the conditions for transformation, to be so curious and open and non-judgmental. And the other thing that came up for me was building the bridge. Again, it's stretching the boundaries of awareness. A lot of people I work with are pretty intellectual, cognitive, strong. And this whole concept of everything being energy is often in the beginning a stretch for them. So I often talk about, we all know what we mean by what are the vibes in the room. You know, what are the vibes when you walk in? Or, you know, what does somebody radiate, you know, when they walk in? What's this person giving off, you know? And so I'm constantly working with building the bridge between the concept of everything is energy and the language which people, at least in the beginning with, feel comfortable, so that they step across their boundary and work with me on this and explore with me. So the language as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. I want to, Trace, before we go to you, I just want to acknowledge that there are 3 questions here in the chat that I think are really great for us to talk about. So let's go to Trace, and then we'll come back to these questions about when is transformational presence coaching needed or wanted? How do you contract with a corporate client with this, and so forth? So just thank you for those questions. We'll come back there in just a moment. Trace, let's go for these 3 fundamental principles.
So to answer your question, Alan, about what it is that I'm doing inside of myself, or what I'm noticing in relationship to working with the Hermetic principles, and specifically these 3 fundamentals of transformational presence, is there's a recognition that I notice that's going on underneath organizations, teams, and there's a longing for wholeness. And oftentimes that wholeness is expressed, or that longing for wholeness is expressed in the dissonance that's going on in the organization. All of us that work in organizations know that there's a lot of different things that are causing stress or problems and challenges. For me, what I recognize is that that is just energy in motion, part of a larger process unfolding. And what really, really wants to happen, what the longing is for that organization, is to step into wholeness, because that's the natural state that we are designed to be in. And organizations are only a reflection of people. And so what I do with that is to recognize that the KPIs, for instance, the goals that an organization has, the big financial goals that they're trying to reach, are just an expression of that longing as well. And so there is a specific bridge that wants to be built energetically and systemically from the goals that organization has. And so my job as a space holder is to listen at that level and to work with the individuals, teams, departments to create a space like we're creating here today, which is discovery and then action, and taking those action steps that want to be taken so that we can see the natural byproduct results that happen, that are very vibrant and expansive. And the financial results always follow in this kind of work as well. And so that's the way I work with this in a systemic perspective, Alan.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I love, Trace, I just want to come back to something you just said about listening. And what was catching me there is where you're listening from. And in a sense, in the simplest way, you might say, we're just listening from the 3 questions all the time, listening from that place. And as you hear that as the coach, number 1, so what wants to happen right now within what's going on? What is the spoken word and the unspoken word that is here? What is the conversation that's out in the open and the conversation that's hidden, that's going on there? So listening to what wants to happen in that energy space. And then who's it asking me to be? Who's it asking me as the coach right now to be? And what role is it asking me to play in this moment? What's it asking me to do? What is the question it's asking me to bring forward? Or how's it just asking me to hold a space right now and stay out of their way? And because they're in a process here that they need to walk through, whatever that is. But it's so important what you're saying, Trace, about where are we listening from? Really critical. I want to come back here. There are so many questions that are here in the chat, which we can't possibly get to all of them now. But Magda, if you will please just send these questions along. I'll know that to keep these questions also in my awareness as I'm building the Mastery Series program that will start in February. But a couple of questions here that seem so powerful. How do you know that transformational coaching is what is needed and wanted? I'll just say one thing about this here, and then I'm curious about Jo and Trace here. For me, we make a distinction between transactional work and transformational work. Transactional work is just about getting a result. And it's usually short term in its focus, and there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes that's exactly what needs to be done. We just need to accomplish this task. We need to take care of this one piece, but it's mostly focused on problem solving or a short term result. Transformational work is also about getting a result, but that's not where we start. Where we start is by stepping back and listening, sensing, feeling. What is it that's trying to get our attention? We say in our work, a problem is not something to be solved. It's a message to be listened to. A problem is not something to be solved. It's a message to be listened to. So we're stepping back and letting it talk to us first. And what are the shifts in perception and awareness that it's inviting? What is it that's wanting to happen here? And now, who must we be? And what are the steps that we are being asked to take in order to move us towards that transformation that's happening? So for me, the answer to that question is transformation is always what is here in the space. If we start from there, we will also then quickly understand what, here's just this one thing. We need to just get this piece taken care of. Take care of that and move on. We work with the Cynefin framework in a very intuitive way. If you don't know the Cynefin framework, we'll be exploring that in the Mastery Series program as well. But it's a way to help a leader or a team understand very quickly what is something that we just need to take care of right away and it's done, what is complicated, linear, and can be taken care of in a relatively short time, and what is much more complex and demands an entirely different approach of working with it. The Cynefin framework is a fairly intellectual tool that we've then kind of put into a transformational presence spin and turned it into an incredibly intuitive tool that is very, very powerful. So just to quickly come to you, Trace and Jo, about this question, how do you know when it's needed? How do you respond in that kind of way? Especially maybe to combine that with the next question that's here, how do you contract using transformational presence with a corporate client that desires very specific results from the coaching? I'm very curious how you respond to that.
Yeah, it's a great question. The first thing that comes up for me, Alan, in that is are the words high intention, low attachment to outcome. In other words, so the companies I work with and the individuals I work with, they absolutely want an outcome. I mean, I do leadership coaching, so we're talking about leadership capacities, we're talking about behaviors and way of showing up. But they're asking to define, what am I going to be working with and what can I expect? What kind of result is going to come out of that? So we do work to define, what is your intention? What is the objective? What do you see? What is your vision? What are you aspiring to in terms of result? Or even better. So I explain, things may happen differently. It may be even better. You may be surprised. Something else may come up. But yes, I never call it a contract, but okay, the contract is, it's the red thread. It's the vision we're walking towards. It is the outcome that we are working together on, and we allow the transformational process to surprise us and to take us in the direction that we really need to be taken into.
Beautiful, Jo. Thank you. Trace, quickly, something here.
Yeah, those are great questions as well for me. I really believe that as a coach, as somebody who's designing projects with clients, that the results need to be a part of how the project is designed. And so we have this distinction between what clients want and what they need. And oftentimes as a coach, I'm great at identifying those needs very quickly. And they will miss the needs. They will hear them and think that they're a great idea, but what motivates an action step is to communicate on the level and frequency of what they want. And what they want on the front end is results in their organization. And so I feel like those are actually a part of the vehicle that we get into that helps to develop consciousness and evolution for them, and that there's a conversation that's going on inside of them about those results. And we, as Jo mentioned, we create a discovery space where we can experience what wants to happen and the results that comes out of that way of working. And what I found with that is that the practical results far outweigh the results of doing that in a linear way. What is critical to that, though, is the space holder who's actually creating that space in conversation with the client, and can they hold that space of discovery for that client, for the team, and for the organization. So I love contracts and specific results, and believe that that's a very important starting point to talk about, and to not shy away in any way from holding a space for those results to happen. The pathway we might take to get there might be a little different than they're used to, and that's okay. You know, that's an important part too.
Yeah, thank you. Staying in discovery, the whole discovery piece. I mean, that alone is that's a huge thing. Ram, I know we need to wrap up here. I just want to answer one more question quickly for me. The question that came in my work with IKEA: how did you get them to buy in using transformational presence company-wide? What shifted in the system? So just to say, my first invitation into IKEA was because some of their internal coaches had done our 5-day program, the Transformational Presence Leadership and Coach Training Program. And so there started to be this kind of buzz within the coaching, internal coaches of the company. And from there, then came an invitation to, I was asked to create a specific program for high potential leaders in IKEA at first, a program called Leaders Shaping Culture Through Their Presence. And so we created that and ran that for high potential leaders a few times. And what happened from that, as those leaders, high potential leaders, were going back to their countries and to their teams to work, then the country CEOs and the head of the global divisions were saying, what's going on? We want this too. And then it began to be the work for at the country CEO level and the top heads of all the divisions. So it was a very organic thing. What I want to say about that is show up in the world and do your work. Show up in the world and do your work. Show up in the world and do your work. Bring who you are and what you have to bring to the table, and allow yourself to be seen. Whether that means you're writing articles, you're writing books, you're writing, you know, I've not ever marketed my work in any way other than I write books. I have 7 of them, and a very active website, and word of mouth carries everything from there for how our work goes. And so I'm not saying that that is the only way to do it. I'm just saying that's how the process has unfolded for me. And a huge part of it is, again, your presence, how you show up, how you hold a space for the people that you're serving. And when they start to feel safe in that space, which tends to happen very quickly in our work, magic starts to happen. Thank you so much for this time. Thank you, Ram, for this invitation, and Magda for taking care of us on the back end. And please visit our website, transformationalpresence.org. There are enormous number of resources there, and many, many articles on my blog, some videos. Please visit iConnect Expansion, Trace's website, and Shifts Happen is the transformational presence work in the Netherlands that Jo is a part of. Visit us, join us for the Mastery Seminar or webinar series in February. I'm sure more information will come from that from Coacharya. So thank you very much, Ram, and I turn it back to you.
Thanks for that, Alan. As you said, the magic did happen here, and hopefully it'll continue. What I would really request you to do is one of you come to the forum. Magda can send you the link. There are a number of questions out here which perhaps some of them have not been answered. Like there was one which I would like to understand more as well. Somebody asked about how does your transformational presence work compare with, let's say, Robert Dill's logical levels or something else, the core transformation work, and so on and so forth. There are similarities. And of course, there are multiple differences as well. Another thing, certainly most of us take away from here, is that really the most important thing for a coach to do is just be still and stay in this space. And let the space tell you what needs to happen. It's not just for the clients, it's for the coaches as well. We believe that we have all the answers, and that is how we can help people. For those of you in the program, what I would like to invite you is, The 28th of October, we plan to have a session on Theory U in terms of its application to business. I'm no expert, and I'm just being the moderator. And there are many of you who might be far more knowledgeable about both Theory U and how it can be applied to business. And if there are any people who know something about this, please do write into me on Magda, and we would like you to be in the panel along with us. We are also trying to get some other people to come in. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful session. Thank you very much, Alan, Jo, and Trace. So many of Magda would send you the chat box details, make it accessible to you so the questions can be answered. And we really look forward to your mastery webinar, which is going to start early next year. And many of the people who are here who might want to go far deeper into the journey with you on the Transformational Presence, I'm sure would be delighted to join the program. Thanks once again. Wonderful having you in this program.
Thank you so much. And thanks, Jo and Trace. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night, good day, good morning, everything.